Good evening and welcome to the Alu-Exp Podcast. Yes, I am very red. The last 2 days I've been out at anchor. We've been working on things. I was fixing the head sail today and also fixing the dinghy today. And it was a lot of outside. Had the hat on half the time. Half the time was too much wind blowing. I'm William. You can check me out also at Sailing Dawn Hunters channel YouTube. And we have been on an aluminum catamaran now for the last year and a half. Brought that catamaran from Durban, South Africa here to Thailand. Did the refit, did a lot of work on that. Make sure you check that out on the other channel. I'm currently coming to you from the studio in that catamaran. We are at anchor. We've been at anchor for about 2.5 weeks now. So we're running off of solar, air conditioning off of solar lithium, actually lithium now because it's nighttime where I am. So once again, welcome to the podcast. I am William. I've been refitting boats, living on boats, and working on boats for over 45 years. Was a private pilot for myself, I should say. Got lessons and essentially lost interest in flying airplanes around airports and got really hooked into the boat life. So also have had multiple engineering companies, 3,000 servo robotic systems around the globe doing install, designing, a couple of patents. More importantly, I guess, from the boating industry, we've upgraded offshore oil rig platforms with 600 employees, welders, cutters, painters. And in the last 9 years, I've been living aboard the multiple boats, doing restoration of 100-year-old hotels. So if you match that all together, am I an expert in the marine industry? I would say I'm an experienced expert. I cannot say that I'm an expert as an architect or as a real designer because that is a very specific field of expertise. But I can tell you that as far as boating, refitting, off-grid work, oil rig upgrades, electronics, lithium, solar, those areas I would be able to put my skill set against just about anybody else that's out there. I do appreciate all the questions. And this podcast is really not just about the new Alu-Exp aluminium or aluminum catamaran that we have introduced. It's a mixture of many different disciplines, and it's a combination that it's been built for you before you buy a boat, before you go to that next boat, before you do your refit, whether it's a trawler, a catamaran, a monohull, whether it's a sail cat, electric. There's a lot of information packed into these podcasts, and that's my objective, is to bring you facts and information. I have studied naval architecture, marine application, electrical engineering. I am an electrical engineer, secondary mechanical engineer. So to me, I need to know answers. And I started to look throughout the marine industry, and I've noticed that the answers were very hard to very hard to look at the difference between fact, wise tale, old stories, a lot of experience that was merged along with a little bit of education. And so I set out to actually look at a vessel that is designed and built for off-grid living. 4 or 5, 6 months at time at an anchorage, not having shore power, not having the common, I guess, amenities that you would have in a marina or even in countries that are boat friendly. I have owned 17 different boats, speedboats that were capable of 80 miles per hour, trawlers, catamarans, aluminum fiberglass, steel monohull, and all the way to the point where now I'm sitting on this 53-foot catamaran that was designed by Anton Dutoy in South Africa. It was designed 2009 specifically, launched around 2014. We bought it a year and a half ago. It had been sitting 3 years, pretty well neglected. And then we had it sailed from Africa to Thailand and did the full refit. What I want to do is that there will be a podcast every Sunday. And the podcast will consist of facts, engineering details, different things that are applicable to the marine industry, a list of a lot of questions. And then once a month, I'm going to do a live so I can answer those live questions that you may have out there. But number one, very young channel, very new to me in podcasts. Typically, I'm speaking to an audience or at least some live people. I'm staring here into a camera. So bear with me. It'll get better. I promise. I hope it does. But, my saying is, where can't you go today? And what that means is, where are you not able to go, whether it's in a camper, a motorhome, whether it's on a boat, whatever it may be, there are confines based on where you can't go because of the type of vehicle you're in or the type of boat you are in or what you may want to buy. So that next question and more explanation mark is, where will you go tomorrow? Whether you're planning for retirement, whether you're already retired, whether you want to look at being a weekend warrior in boating and then move into moving aboard the boat, living aboard. So where will you go tomorrow? What is your dream? What's your goal and aspiration? So again, these podcasts are help for the current boat owner, the person that wants to do refit, a person that's looking at buying a boat or building a boat, what type of boat it is, and then more importantly, what do you think you're going to use that boat for? Because that is specific on what type of boat you really should be spending your money on. So again, I'm not a degreed marine architect. I will cover a lot of facts, a lot of details in these podcasts. Definitely shout out, comment to me back. I've had a lot of very serious comments about aluminum, fiberglass, composite, my opinion. And again, I want to preface that this is my opinion based on 45 years of boating, having a electrical engineering degree, having an engineering company with 3,000 systems globally, and then for the last 10 years living aboard, working aboard. And I can tell you that a lot of the things that I thought as an engineer, I can throw out the porthole when you're living aboard a vessel. And when you're spending time, weeks and months on end on a vessel, you suddenly start to realize that what you thought or what worked well on the drawing board or what looked like fantastic on YouTube, those things may not necessarily survive in an environment that we're currently in. When I say that, I'm at anchor in about 14 meters of water. We had 42 to 48 knot gusts this afternoon. And thank goodness the boat and its design is such that the wind blows through it. It doesn't blow it around like the other boats I've had. And it slices through the waves. So at anchor, those waves are slicing through the hull as opposed to the boat bouncing up and down, moving all over the place, thus causing, in many cases, people getting nauseated, seasick, or having to move to an anchorage that is more calm. So let me cover what's most important that I think is phenomenal. And I say that because over the last, I guess, 5 to 6 years, I have looked at building a boat, but I wasn't satisfied where I could build it or what location, or could I do it myself? Could I build a team again? At my age, I decided that as much as I would love to start from scratch, I've learned the old way is that to do it with partners and do it with experienced people far exceeds what I could do in the amount of time I would have and satisfy with you as a client exactly what you would be looking for in a vessel that really doesn't exist today. And I say that, and I'll go more into that in detail as I move through this podcast and over the next couple of weeks and next couple of months. So what I've managed to do is I've managed to put together collectively a team of experts that can and will be building the boat. But the experts, and what I look at is that I've built a team and a company that builds a boat. And that team and company brings hundreds of years of experience in every small detail. And what I mean by that is that if I look at the Alu-Exp, the aluminium expedition vessel, and if you look at the screen, that aluminum vessel is depicted, give me one moment, in this box here. So we have an aluminum exposition vessel that I will go more into detail over the next 2 or 3 months. But now you merge that with a company called Max Cruise Marine. Max Cruise Marine are located in Vietnam. They build fiberglass catamarans that are fantastic. They were nominated for Multi-Hull of the Year. Their catamarans 45, 48, and 55 are utilizing hybrid systems. Those hybrid systems aren't test systems. There are a couple of boats already in the US on hybrid. There are boats around Asia using hybrid. And they are a vessel, from my, I guess, opinion, that is a very well kept secret. And our job is we will bring Max Cruise Marine into the social media marketplace, and we will be selling, and we're agents for those boats in Asia because of our experience in not only the boating industry, but then in our partnership, we are going to be merging some of the items that worked well on the Max Cruise Marine and that are currently being utilized, so that Alu-Exp is not going to be a science project. We're not going to be meeting with a multitude of vendors and meeting with a bunch of suppliers. We have the years and years of experience from Terry at Max Cruise Marine and his team to merge that education, that manufacturing process, and to bring that together with the aluminium design. And then I move into what I speak of design is that Anton Dutoy. Anton designed the vessel that I'm currently sitting on. Anton has designed a multitude of fiberglass and aluminum vessels, aluminum sailing vessels. And when I had the phone call with both Anton and Dwight, his biggest question or maybe concern, and also Terry's biggest concern, was you can't build a catamaran if it doesn't sail. It's got to sail. It's got to perform. Definitely Anton Dutoit, with his experience and background, this catamaran that I'm on, it won regattas. It sailed under sail power from Durban to Somalia on fishing charters. It hit heavy, heavy ass seas, blows from across the ocean. So this vessel has proven itself. It's been in the water since 2014. And when I stripped the boat down to the hulls and to the bare walls, I was able to look at the substructure, the aluminum, the lack of corrosion, the lack of all the issues that people kept telling me about. And I'm sitting here in Thailand in a boat that, for the most part, we don't air condition, and it's cooler than our fiberglass boat due to the insulation, the design, the overhead eyebrows, etc. But I'll go into that more in detail. So essentially, we've taken the Alu-Exp design, brand, and years of experience that I've had, and merged that with Max Cruise Marine, their years of experience. Terry's been building boats, I think, for almost 40 years. The Max Cruise product line, the boat yard, which is in Vietnam, that builds over 200 boats a year of both fiberglass and aluminium. And then you merge that with Anton Dutoy and the naval architecture group, and the amount of information and what I'm providing and what we're providing collectively for a vessel that is not a standard vessel. It is not a production or even a semi-production aluminum catamaran. It's an expedition offshore vessel that I guess the inspiration came from the Dashoes, their FPPs, their Beowulf. Having studied and followed them for the last 12 years, and having every single book, I utilized a lot of that mindset in this design. Now match that with a company called SIT Yachts in Thailand. SIT Yachts is a marketing arm for marketing and selling the Max Cruise Marine brand. And then that also is partnered with Multi-Hull Asia. Multi-Hull Asia is also in Phuket. Charlie has been, I think, 15 years buying, selling, brokering, and negotiating for multi-hulls globally. And Charlie is an expert in the brokerage of multi-hulls. And that merge of these companies has provided an excellent group that will provide this vessel not only in the asset, the vessel itself, but also in the complete package and background that we will be able to support that vessel not only in its design build process, but also after sales support. So I'm hoping that this group will assist you going forward before you make that next purchase, whether it's one of our boats or whether it's even another boat. Make sure that you have an expert help you and guide you, because there are a lot of options out there. Some are fantastic, and some I won't throw mud, but I would not be definitely crossing an ocean on. So I'm going to go forward and start a little bit different, because this was pretty shocking to me. And it does play into this podcast, is that when I was looking to retire, and I had thought for sure I was going to be on a trawler and I was going to travel around on a trawler. And so I spent a ton of time going to trawler fests for 15 years, looking at the Nordhaven, looking at the Katie Krogan, looking at the Jeffersons, looking at the Hatterases, looking at all the trawlers, the various trawlers that were out there. And it's quite interesting is that I had owned trawlers until I purchased the monohull. And the reason why I purchased monohull, I guess 50% was because of my wife Yana wanting sails on a boat. But I also began to learn the shortcomings of having a trawler for my lifestyle and our lifestyle. We would leave Miami weekends on the trawler while we were refitting the motor sailor. The steel motor sailor was a tank, but that tank could go anywhere. We weathered 2 hurricanes, a water spout. We hit bottom off the coast of the Bahamas with some huge rocks. That boat today is still floating. It was built in 1978. Very old boat built by DeVry Friendship. But the point I'm making is that when I started researching trawlers, the Katie Krogan was one of the, I guess, the go-to boats for trawler. Well, only a month ago, Katie Krogan filed for Chapter 7. The molds were completely destroyed. They took along with it with Chapter 7, closed the doors. Also, American Tug closed the doors. And so this company was formed in 1977. I mean, I graduated in 1975 from high school. So 77, they started. There are over 700 boats that were sold globally. That means there's 700 loyal clients. And even some of those clients did not take delivery of their boats. And Katie Krogan pulled the plug, closed the doors. It's interesting that in 2024, they had 15 million in revenue. In 2025, 10 million in revenue. And in 2026, a revenue of 400,000. That's in a short period of time from 15 million to 400,000, and the doors closed. That gives me a question, and it's a question I've been asking since I started looking for what I would call the best vessel that I could think of for off-grid living and exploration, is where will this client base look for in a vessel? Where they're going to go? Definitely they're going to have their own following. These boats are going to be resold. But it begs this question, is that what is the vessel that is going to replace the Katie Krogan? And that still remains to be seen. I know Nordhaven will grab a huge market share. It's a phenomenal vessel. I know a lot of Nordhaven owners, and I know the NOG group is very specialized in answering questions and supporting. But it's also a vessel that is extremely expensive. So the Katie Krogans, having 700 of them, you could dig around and find one at a pretty good bargain. Maybe have to do a refit, add some things to it. But it was a vessel that definitely filled a niche market with 700 boats out there. Now, another interesting fact is that the Beneteau Group, which is also the owning group of Lagoon Catamarans, announced they're going to close the Michigan plant. So the Four Winds boats, the Glastron boats, and the Scarab Jet boats, that company is going to shut down those plants in Michigan. And those boats also follow and now will be in the same location or the same position, I guess, as where Katie Krogan is. These are market trends that are happening like now, not in a short period of time, but like in the last 3-4 months. This happens to be, by the way, Chang water, not beer, and but some pretty good water here in Thailand. So let's take a look at this. Is that the next? That's a huge surprise. All of us know that we, as boat owners, your go-to anywhere around the States was West Marine or Defender. West Marine typically had what you needed. And when you needed it, you weren't about to wait. And so West Marine is closing 91 stores in 20 states across the US. Florida alone, 18 of these stores have closed. So it's very evident that there are changes in the marine industry, and that really makes you think about the question, is this the time to design and build a brand new boat? Is this the time from a marketing perspective to enter into the boat building marketplace? Watching and being part of the YouTube community, and over the last, I guess, 5 years, we've crawled ourselves up to 20 million views, about 90,000 subscribers. So I followed the YouTube community quite closely. And I look at the multiple YouTubers, and I'm not going to go into detail, but there's a lot of people in the YouTube space that have either built boats or bought custom built boats or in the process of building and releasing boats. It seems to be a trend, and that trend is based on one commonality. And I think that's because the people that have traveled and lived aboard boats for a very long time have been dissatisfied with what they either bought or what's available to them. So naturally, the next thing you would do, and I do as an engineer, is if I'm not satisfied, I want to go fix it. And I want to fix it by making something better. Well, the boat building process is extremely difficult. The complete process, when we upgraded offshore oil rigs, we would bring the oil rig into Galveston, Texas. We would fly in over 800 people from around the globe, put them on that rig, and they lived on that rig. They slept on that rig because they were experts from around the globe, and the rig was an offshore vessel. So they could stay on that oil rig and be living on it and be working on it. And the reason why we brought those experts in is because finding the skill set to do all of the things required on a metal boat. And yes, the jackups in the offshore rigs are all steel. There are a lot of aluminum components. There's a lot of electrical, but essentially this is a steel vessel that is designed to weather anything that you could throw at it. Our rigs are currently off the coast of Angola. They are workover and drill rigs. And when you go 14 to 15 kilometers off the coast of Angola, you have ocean and seas that are crazy. Now you go 30 kilometers out, and those rigs are sitting out in the middle of the ocean. I've sat on those rigs at nighttime. There's nothing around you. And if you need something, it comes in by helicopter. So you cannot upgrade an oil rig and hope that it's going to work. It's got to be a guarantee that it's going to work. Now, take that and mold and bring that mentality into building a vessel. And so a huge respect to Steve and Linda Dashu, because they broke away from the sailing community. They designed the FPB, and I would say that that is an F power boat. I'll leave it at that. But that design was not accepted within the community, and they had to do their own design work, their own integration, their own testing. And to this day, those boats are phenomenal. They hold the highest resale value, and it's also a situation that they broke the molds and started something new. And I'm saying that because right now, today, there are market movers. And when I say market movers, what I mean is that if I look at boat building today, and I look at companies that have been in boat building for 50 years, um, the cost of resin and raw materials uh, has increased, and it has increased because of rules, regulations, import regulations, labor regulations. It's not just because of the cost of oil or because of the dynamics of the raw materials. The raw materials used in fiberglass boat building is toxic, and the requirements must be specific in how those employees. When I look at Max Marine, they have the full body suits on, they've got the masks on, they've got the correct gear and equipment to do that work. But if I was to look at doing that work in the States, if anybody here has done fiberglass work, take a look at Parley Revival at his channel when he did the bulkhead and the repairs. It is a nasty job. It's dirty, it's hot, it's sweaty. So essentially, the cost of resin and raw materials not only has increased, but so are the rules and regulations. And so the cost to build a fiberglass boat must be an intricate part of the success of the company, or the company's not going to be a sustainable company if the raw materials and labor and costs keep going up. Um, Import and tariff issues. Yes, if you're importing materials, because a boat is made up of thousands of pieces and parts and assemblies from around the globe, and they're all put inside of a hull. So the boat builder isn't building the water system or the electrical system or the engine power plant system. They're integrating that based on the manufacturer's expertise, and they're installing that inside of their hull. So again, now when you look at these costs, the cost of labor becomes extremely important in your profitability, in the success of the product line, the success to you, the client. So I'm aware that there are boats that were designed and built 2.5 years ago, almost three, and they're still not finished. Cost overruns, cost of labor, moving from one boatyard to the next, just having the expertise to take a boat from the hull, a raw hull, all the way through finish out. You're looking at multitudes of experts and craftsmen, and those craftsmen are kind of like me. We're a dying age. It's no longer cool to understand how to use a hand plane or to use a handsaw or to even use a router. It's dirty, it's messy. So now you look at the technical labor pool of craftsmen. And bear with me, I do have some slides, but I've realized a lot of the people that are sending me comments, they're listening to these podcasts at work or driving to work or on an airplane or at a layover. So I do have slides if you go to the video section of this podcast, but I am using a lot of time to explain in detail because those people that are listening and don't have the luxury to look at a slide, I want them to understand to what depth and detail I'm trying to get to a point here. So essentially, as these companies are closing down and as these companies are losing profit and trying to stay alive, and boat sales have tanked, used boat sales have tanked. The marketplace today is definitely in the favor of the buyer. Right now, Saba 50 that was selling for 850,000, you can now purchase the same boat for 625,000. That means that in a year and a half, that boat valued from 850 to 625. If you buy that boat today for 625, you can use that boat for 2 years, and you're not going to have the depreciation that already it has lost. The different vessels that are on the marketplace that can now be purchased, you also have an issue that they may not be able to be insured. I look and I'm going to reference Max Cruise Marine, a hybrid boat, brand new technology, carbon infused. extremely strong, extremely well built because they are built in Vietnam and they're built by a team of experts. You're going to sit in that boat for under $1 million. And that means that you have a hybrid and a brand new boat, 48 to 55. 55 is around 1.4. But my case here is that you're going to get a semi-custom boat and you're going to be able to talk to the owner of the company. You're going to be able to look at the boatyard. You're going to be able to have some input in the general layout of the interior and what materials you're going to select. Pick up the phone and try and talk to the guy at Fontaine Peugeot or Lagoon or Leopard. You're going to have about 15 layers before you get through to the person that's going to make a decision. So now I look at world economics. And what I mean by that is that having restored hotels up and down the coastline in the U.S., the labor rate and the skill set, we renovated old hotels that are over 100 years old, digging them, tearing them apart, putting them back together again. And just to bring an I-beam to the 11th floor of a hotel, hold it in place, weld it in place, and then get a certification signed off, you're looking at 3 months. 3 months for 2 to 3 beams to be installed. You take that same labor and that same skill set and you do it in Vietnam or you do it in other parts of the globe, you still have a craftsman that can weld, can chop, can chip, can inspect, but you're doing it in an environment and in a workplace that those welders are proud to go to work. They are 3 and 4 generation welders, so they have a skill set that is amazing based on what work they're going to do. So world economics plays a huge part in the next boat that would be built or where it's built and the quality that's being demanded in its build process. Now, when I look at that, and I hit this a little bit when we discussed and started, is that if I look at the location of the build for Alu-Exp, the location is essentially in Vietnam at a boatyard that is split in multiple locations. And I've got to preface here that Max Cruise Marine is not closed. It just happened to be closed when I pulled this up on the map. So this is in Vietnam, and the build facility has a huge amount of molds. And as we were driving to the boatyard, I said to Terry, I said, are those all boats that have been unsuccessful? And he said, no, bud. Those are the successful ones because those are molds that at least 10 boats were built by. And while I was at the facility, they had a tractor and they were pulling one of the molds out because they had an order for more of them. And what I mean by that is that this boatyard is building over 200 boats a year. And they're also building fiberglass and they're building aluminium boats or aluminum. I'm going to start saying aluminum, I believe, because if I pick one, I won't get beat to death over my pronunciation of the word. But what I'm stating here is that if you look at the team that I've built, Thailand is a vacation paradise. You can fly to Phuket from around the globe. You can look at the drawings. You can look at the engineering. You can discuss it with Charlie of Multi-Hull. You can discuss it with SIT Yachts. And then it's only an hour and a half from Thailand to the factory where you can take a look at the boat. You can look at the build process. You can speak with the yard and get that experience that's required. So you can wrap this up into a sales / visit / vacation. You can take a look at the multiple catamarans that are in Thailand, from Lagoon to Island Spirit to Leopard to Fontaine Peugeot to Seawind. They're all there. They're all in one place where you can walk up and down the dock and you can do comparisons, which is phenomenal because I hadn't had that ability until relocating to Thailand. Vietnam, an expert shipyard. But more importantly, it's also an export-import for marine vessel manufacturing. And I state that because it's extremely important that when you start a build, that contract gets lodged with the government, and that is a vessel for export. What's more important is your money going into an escrow is going to be utilized for the build of that project. And you're going to not only get updates of that build, but you're going to pay as that boat project proceeds. So you're going to have the ability to intimately be checking that build process with a yard that has been there for 40 some years. It has the infrastructure not only to support this boat build, but the labor pool and force that can go from boat to boat, depending on whether it's a finish out, whether it's a hull, whether it's making the custom cuts for the tines, whatever is happening, it's happening on this spot, all in one place under our management team. Again, skilled labor. That labor in the boatyard, when it picks up a welder and it starts to assemble something, these people know the difference and how to weld in a hot, humid day, in a cool day, how to prepare the metal. Essentially, this is a skill set. It isn't that you just put a couple of things together and you tack weld it and your boat's going down the yard. That is kind of a misconception, is that yes, these boats design do integrate, but there's a ton of skill that goes into the performance and the build of that boat. And it's why the Dash U's maintain that integrity required to build that boat. And when they stopped and they retired, they stopped building those boats. Currently, Sue of Berthen International, Sue Grant, is the holder of the keys, I guess, of those boats. And she's a phenomenal person. I've worked with Sue in the past. And the reason why the Dash U's stopped is they could no longer maintain the quality control that they required for their vessels. And I'm going to say that again. They stopped because they could no longer maintain the quality control of the vessels. It's not saying the shipyard couldn't do it or a design team couldn't do it, but Steve and Linda Dash U decided that if they couldn't do it and they couldn't put their name on it, they were not going to continue. And this is the mindset that I have built around the Alu-Exp brand, is that not only myself, but Terry of Max Cruise, Charlie, Anton, Dwight, the team in itself is going to be able to guarantee the quality control and the ability to produce a superior vessel in aluminum. Now, I'm going to go forward and say that what I've learned here is that, and this is a little bit to the opposite of what's happening with Katie Krogan closing the doors and Nordhaven growing. As Katie Krogan closed the doors, Nordhaven introduced, or I should say reintroduced, the 46. The 46 is the first Nordhaven I stepped on. It's the first boat that I looked at the Trawler Fest. It was a boat that I was drooling over. Well, Nordhaven retooled it, reconditioned it, upgraded it, and they released it in the same months that Katie Krogan closed the doors, because Nordhaven saw this vision, and it's a vision that I share. It's a vision that says that today, quality and the team behind the quality is actually more important than the item. And what I mean by that is that the next gen high net worth buyers, and most of us are not high net worth buyers, but I want to use those and that crew and that, I guess, global mindset. High net worth buyers are not as interested today in what they're buying, in the things. They're more interested in the experience. And what I mean by that is that the experience of exploration, climbing mountains, going at high speeds, daredevil activities, maybe one day going to the moon, space rides, different things that high net worth individuals are spending their money on is on life experiences. It used to be watches and fancy cars and mansions. Well, after you have 6 or 7 mansions around the globe, they all get pretty damn boring. But look at off-grid vacations, remote exploration from the North to the South Pole. And they're looking for international assets that are mobile. And what I mean by that is that if you're going to invest in an asset, in say, a lake house or a home globally, then you are bound by the rules of where you have placed your asset or you put your money. If you put your money into a vessel or into a boat, and that boat is built for export, you now have an asset class that can move to whatever location you want it to move to. You can hire a captain to move it there. You can take it yourself. I think of even about, I met a couple excellent people from Wisconsin. They're a captain, and the husband and wife were on a McConaughey 675. Carbon fiber, fiberglass boat, phenomenal. And the owner, I don't know who he is. By professionalism, they didn't ever say. But that boat was built. The McConaughey was built, and it was designed to do the North Passage. And it was a purpose-built boat for exploration. And that boat is going to a place where I look at, and if it's going to be bouncing across chunks of ice, you've got to have an extremely experienced captain, crew on board, probably a pilot on board to help you know where you're going. So my point here is that the high net worth individuals and buyers, they're the market movers. 50% of the 2% guide the marine industry. And you can look at the details on that. It's not important in this podcast. But here's the point I want to make is this is how a non-high net worth individual, and in this case, a non-high net worth individual would be someone that is from middle class to any class. You can buy a $5,000 sailboat and travel the globe. You can buy a $50,000 sailboat. You can buy a sailboat that was ready to be cut up, and you can refit it yourself. So you do not need to follow the rules of the high net worth individual to be able to be a global explorer. Yes, you've got to have a big set of kahunas. You have to have a little bit of a twisted DNA, as I guess my wife Yacht and I talk about all the time. We are not the norm. We love to be an anchor. We love to test things at anchor. I don't know anymore if I love to fix things all the time, but that experience of having to fix things all the time is why I know what not to put on this boat. It's why I know what not to do on this boat. And that experience from all of us collectively is going to get you an outstanding catamaran that is and has been designed for exploration and offshore use. So this is a way to get away from the concrete and noise. And I want to say in this podcast right now that because I'm getting flooded with questions, I mean, thank you very much. Keep the questions coming. But those questions I've realized are almost a complete podcast. So in this podcast, I'm going to cover very little about the new boat. I'm going to cover more the questions because I'm going to then tell you how those integrate into the boats, both production-wise, semi-custom, and then also the custom catamaran lines that we're doing, the Alu-Exp. So next week, Sunday, we're going to be live. And that means Yana and I will be live to answer a lot of your questions that are specific to off-grid living, specific to the boat build, specific to what we bring to the marketplace and our experiences. And it's much easier to answer those questions one-on-one on live. So I'm going to cover now what I call the questions or Q&A, and there's a lot of them. So bear with me. Those of you that cannot see the screen, I made a mistake the last couple podcasts as I answered a question without reading it. So I need to read it so that those of you listening understand what that question was. And then more importantly, you're going to get a little bit of a mindset on where my answer is going to come from. So bear with me. I have covered maybe 90% of the questions. There are some other questions that I am saving for the next live, and I am because those have been questions that have been grouped together where 5, 6, 7 people have asked the same question, not only on this podcast, but also on our Sailing Dawn Hunter YouTube channel. And so I want to make sure that I cover these questions because clearly the majority of them are from people that are looking to buy a boat or have a boat, or they definitely need to have answers, and I want to make sure that they get the answers. This first question comes from Lily Lynn 6115. I have currently by demographics 95% men, 5% female women. I would love to have the women number go up, because that's generally the person that's going to allow that man to buy the boat. And I say that all the time is because the boat can be strong and rugged. It can be a monster. It can sail. It can be everything you can imagine, but it better satisfy the girlfriend or the wife. Or otherwise the man's going to have a hard time, the both of them surviving on the boat together. So it's very important, the materials, the livability, the galley, and I won't go into those details. But thank you, Lily Lynn, for the question. And here's the question. So many boat fires lately. Your knowledge of lithium battery setup can surely make these setups safer. It seems all the news of these boats going up in flames, they blame it on lithium batteries. Wishing you all the best, helping to make things safer with your design. Lily, that's an excellent question. And I've been personally battling that question, I guess, since the first lithium battery that I put on our trawler. It was a Jefferson trawler. I got 4 batteries at a bargain out of a company in California. Had those on the boat for about 4 months, had nothing but problems because they were a bargain battery. I knew very little at the time. And then I went to Battleborn batteries. Those were the go-to at that time. Played with those for about, I guess, about a year. They did well, but I never exercised those. I didn't put them to the test that Will Prowse has put them to, and I guess thank goodness I didn't continue with Battleborn. And the reason why I didn't is because I went more into the testing of the actual battery, because I wasn't satisfied with what a factory was putting out at that time. So to answer your question, Lily Lynn, I still to this day, a huge part of my research is on lithium. The current boat that we have, our 53 foot, I'm using EV304s. They're individual prismatic cells. I then connect them with bus bars, and I put the 123 BMS into the system. And then I have a solid state high speed relay that monitors the current for charging the battery and also the current as it discharges. I dropped a wrench one day in the engine room, and the wrench went from the ground to the 24 volt. The wrench got red hot. The fuse blew, which was a 200 amp fuse, which was midsection. And when I went to the front, the Victron Servo and the 123 BMS had shut down. And what I found is that the BMS did shut down in time, but because I had the bus bars bolted from cell to cell, when they were installed to where the bolts were too tight, and it pulled inserts out. There were helicoil inserts inside the 123 BMS. Anyway, I'm getting too technical. So, Lily, most important, the new boat, the new Alu-Exp, is using Safari batteries. They're solid state. They're extremely robust. They're the same battery that Max Cruise Marine is using in their hybrids. I'm definitely a proponent and I definitely love the battery design. I'm not a sponsor of them. I selected their battery for the new Alu-Exp based on the history, the company, the background, and knowing the cell performance. And that is the battery of choice. Now, I have worked on boats that have Mastervolt batteries, Victron batteries, EV304 batteries. I would say that the BMS and the installation, Lily, is far more important than the battery itself. And I state that cautiously, because if you're using a Victron battery, it has an internal BMS. It has CAN communication. If you're using a Mastervolt battery, it has internal. if you're using a Roy Power, if you use all the different ones that are out there, there's different names and brands. Um, what's also what's also important, you better make sure your insurance carrier is going to cover your vessel based on the battery that's inside of it and that the installer is certified. You can use a battery by Victron, but if you're not using a certified installer, you're going to have a problem with insurance if that boat burns. And that's the other thing that's very important is that you have to go with batteries that have a CE approval, that have been tested, that have the safety factor that allows you to put that battery inside the boat. My preference is always have the batteries installed outside of the boat. Definitely not under the bed. But that's just because as an electrical engineer, nothing is foolproof. And to me, how and where you put things in the Alu-Exp, we have a dedicated sealed engine room, mechanical room with watertight bulkheads, fire considerations, etc. So it's very important where those are installed and who installs them and what safety factors you have. Forget about a fire extinguisher. That's not going to help you. You've got to have instantaneous shutdown on a cell by cell level. But thank you again for the question. Next question. This comes from Joe Mwama, 5035. He said, it's 96 degrees outside, comfy 70 degrees inside my salon. Can't help but think as I watched your video that a tad better engineering on your solar or AC, and you wouldn't be sweating your burp off. So what Joe is saying, and what I always tell people is what you're seeing in a YouTube video is a condensed 100-hour week into a 15-minute video. And even my family members or other people will talk to me and they'll say, man, did you really do that? Did that happen to you? What I'm saying is that in order to provide entertainment, some fact and knowledge, and something that's going to keep people coming back, the ability to cover everything in detail is just not possible. So I'm sitting right now with my feet under a blanket because the air conditioner is so cold, blowing into this room. It's DC. It's running off of lithium. It's variable speed DC air conditioners. We have 4 of them on the boat. We sleep every night in air conditioning at anchor because during the day the sunshine charges the lithium batteries. But also during the day, I'm able to run the salon air conditioners. Yana can cook because the sun is charging the batteries and it's also providing the current and power to run the boat. So summary is we can be cool when we want, but I'm also kind of a conservative person. I don't want to run the air if it's not necessary. We always anchor on the windy side of the island because we love having the windows open, the breeze blowing through. So thank you for your question. Next, Andy McClung. Can installing a line cutter on your shaft give you another level of protection from the crab pots, etc.? Actually, yes, there are line cutters, there are rope cutters, but what I've learned in Thailand is that you don't know if that line is attached to a net, a cable, an anchor, a chain, a mooring ball. You must be diligent when you're going in uncharted waters and you avoid anything that you possibly can. A line cutter could help you out, but a line cutter could also cause issues. I elected not to use them on this boat. I'd rather go under the boat later on or shut the engine down and then cut the line away and see what has happened, because a line cutter may cut it too late, or you might have a fishing line that can cause problems with, I guess, your shaft and things down the line, even with vibration. So thank you again for the question. Line cutters do work pretty well on sail drives, but on the shaft, I prefer to go down and see what's going on. Now, Charlie O, shout out to you because Charlie has sent me multiple questions, and I hope you guys are sticking here because the questions have a lot of information behind them. So Charlie O says, great episode. Wow, there's so much information here. Especially love the discussion on shaft drive versus sail drive, and so much more. Um, OMG, I love the philosophy behind ALUEXP. And this is what's important, is that the sail plan is really an addition to the boat. It isn't a sailing catamaran for races and regattas. That's my quote. And Charlie O, absolutely. It's a boat that will provide a safe, enjoyable journey to wherever you may want to go. It's so important to know what use cases the boat is being designed and built for, as you really can't have it all. It's impossible for a boat to satisfy all the requirements. Well, this is a very important subject, and this is a subject that I constantly have to defend with both, I guess, Terry of Max Cruise Marine, because his boats sail. They sail fast, they're strong, they're hybrid, they're sexiest looking boats. The Anton Dutoy, they design boats for regattas, race boats. They design boats that sail. And I've even had people comment that if a boat isn't fast, it's not safe. If you look at the new gunboat 80, the mentality is a fast boat is a safe boat because you can get away from weather. You can travel from port to port faster, so you can get somewhere before you get into bad storms or bad weather. Well, from my perspective, I've always been an out-of-the-box thinker. The reason why I have 3,000 servo robotic packaging machines around the globe is because I wasn't satisfied with the brake clutches when I was an engineering manager at the company. I left the company, I started a company and designed a servo application that replaced the brakes and clutches. What I mean by that is I was told I couldn't do it. And 300 employees later, 60 engineers, we became the world leader in servo-driven packaging and automation, which now is being utilized today by the likes of Bosch Packaging, Hasten Manufacturing, high-speed packaging systems. So again, I've always been told as an engineer that I can't do something. And I hired 15 to 20 engineers that told me that we couldn't do something. And my job was to prove that we could do something. And I state that not out of arrogance, but I state that is because as an engineer, we're taught to follow rules, we're taught to listen, and we're taught to use calculations. But typically, we're not taught to break those rules. And I look at the latest SpaceX programs, catching a rocket, reusing the rockets, electric cars by Tesla, the technology today, the iPhone. Those are people that were told they can't do that. So when I'm told by architects and engineers, and I'm not speaking about you, Terry, or you, Anton, I'm talking about a lot of people that I get in the comments, is that aluminum's the wrong material. You're going to have corrosion problems. You need to tell people and educate them that corrosion is a problem with aluminum boats. You need to educate the public that, each boat has its own purpose. And I absolutely agree. There's a place for a fiberglass catamaran. I've owned them, but the place is not crossing an ocean. Sorry, from my perspective, I'm not putting my loved ones and family on a vessel unless I can predict the weather and I can go in the correct sea state. And I have many people that have crossed oceans and catamarans. The Max Cruise Marines have done it, and they've done it safely. There's lagoons, leopards, fontaines. There's even $5,000 sailboats that have crossed. But I'm saying, from my perspective, I want to design a boat that is able to hit that weather front, able to ride out something nasty and horrible, and preferably make it through the storm. But if it doesn't, I want that boat to be a safe refuge, even if it flips over, for a place to hook on and to stay with the boat until you're rescued, because it's a lot easier to find an aluminum capsized vessel than it is to find a fiberglass capsized vessel. And it's a lot easier to find an aluminum capsized vessel than a lifeboat somewhere. And coming from past paramedic, coming from working with the United States Coast Guard, it's extremely difficult to find a small life raft in a huge ocean. But to search for a metal boat or an aluminum boat with the current technology for reasons that military utilizes, it's far easier to find in rain, in fog, in bad and foul weather. So my point is that the sail plan is a secondary part of this design. It is not the primary. And thank you, Charlie O, for pointing that out. And over the next couple of months, I'll go into that more detail, is that this is a vessel for the days that you didn't plan. Even in a marina, we rode out 2 hurricanes on our steel motor sailor. We watched fiberglass catamarans sink. We watched them hit the dock and sink. We watched them bobber so far up and down that they tore the cleats off the deck and sunk. Our steel motor sailor, 68-ton, survived 2 hurricanes. Both hurricanes, we were on the boat. One time we packed up our gear and we crawled on our hands and knees on the dock to land because we thought that the marina was going to be torn to pieces. Lo and behold, it did. The marina was completely shut down. Our boat was allowed to stay for a week while they started cleaning up the mess because our boat was not damaged. It wasn't hurt. So I say that is that experience teaches you a very valuable lesson. It's not where you want to be, but if you are there and you didn't plan it, you want to be in something that you've got all the chips in your camp. Next question. This is by KDL Lange, 6052. I mentioned this, you had your sail drive prop issue. And are you exploring ultrasonic anti-fouling? Now, what he meant is that the current boat we're on has a sail drive, and we bought it with sail drives. There is no way to realistically change the sail drives. I'm not a proponent of sail drives at all for offshore exploration. And I don't want to, again, I'm not here to throw mud at anyone, but if you're buying a boat for exploration and it has a sail drive on it, you better think again, because you have a huge hole in the bottom of your boat. The sail drive protrudes, and yes, you can build protection. You can have mini skigs that can protect that sail drive. But the sail drive also has issues with corrosion. It has issues with different types of aluminum in the sail drive than the aluminum on the sailboat itself. So I have seen sail drives in 3 months get eaten away in the marina when you've got the wrong boat next to you. So the other problem with the sail drive is that if you have a problem, you're going to have to either rebuild the sail drive or you're going to have to find a new one. But if you hit something hard and you snap that off, in this boat, we have watertight bulkheads and watertight compartment in the engine room. We snap off the sail drive or we break a bladder or a piece of rubber, the engine room's going to fill with water. We're going to lose that engine, but the boat's not going down. We just happen to lose one engine. We still have the sails. We have the other engine. We have the other generator. So essentially, any boat built with a sail drive, from my estimation, is not a true exploration, go anywhere boat, because you are going to hit something sooner or later. Container, huge log, chunk of ice. Or in this case, 2 weeks ago, I saw a longtail had partially submerged. We almost hit it. Had we hit it, we would have had a surprise, but we would not have taken out the 2 front hulls had we hit it with another boat. Are you exploring ultrasonic anti-fouling options? You know, I haven't. And the reason I haven't is because the boat being aluminum, we dive down, we scrape the hull. We can beach this boat. We can put it up in the sand, let the tide go down. We can scrape it standing in the sand. So I'm really not looking at ways to deal with the anti-fouling. I would rather just inspect the hull, clean it off, and know what I have down there in case there is an issue as well. Next question. This is by Katie Lange, 6052. Your design shows a shaft drive skeg. Why not extend that to a rudder, making it even more difficult for something to get up into the prop and shaft, and also strengthen your rudder assembly? Delos 2.0 utilizes a rudder skeg. that would also make it difficult for orcas to damage the rudder. Another excellent question. Our steel motor sailor had a skeg hung rudder. The skeg was a 4x4 solid piece of steel, and it supported the rudder. It protected the prop shaft and the prop. We bounced off of that multiple times. I could feel the vibration inside the boat. The reason why I have not designed a skeg hung rudder on the Alu-Exp was specifically because the experience of the boat we're currently on. This boat, we pull it up with a trailer and we set it on the concrete on the sacrificial keels, and the rudders are able to support the complete weight of the boat. If we go up on the beach and the water goes down, we set between rudder and keel. The keel protects the shaft and the prop because the shaft and prop sits up higher. The rudders are sacrificial rudders, which a portion of the keel is sacrificial. It will break away, but still break away to a point where it's still protecting the prop. And then the rudder breaks away to a portion that remains to still steer the boat. This is going through a 4-inch in diameter stainless steel shaft that then goes through 3 sets of bearings. So if an orca whale starts bumping and nudging the rudder shafts, it's going to nudge and bump the boat around. It's going to cause problems. Who knows? I'm not about to go looking for a test, but essentially putting a skeg all the way to the back rudder changes the sailing dynamics drastically. It changes the way that I can crab into a marina. If I've got wind and current, I can turn my rudders and I can use my port and starboard engine and walk this boat against wind and current against the dock. It makes it extremely hard and difficult on a catamaran. It's different on a monohull. So having a catamaran and having been in a catamaran and living aboard for going on 4 years, the last thing I want is something that's going to impede my ability to move the boat, dock the boat, or do a quick steer maneuver. And the reason for that is I covered some dynamics of surfing. And what I mean by that is that high-speed steering is what Dash U's designed that allows their FPBs to navigate heavy seas, surf a wave, and that steering control, you can go 3 degrees within a matter of milliseconds, and now you're not overshooting the steering. The same steering design I integrated into our steel motor sailor. I took a Sinrad dual hydraulic, a 600-pound rudder, and I was able to control that boat in heavy seas, in waves that typically you wouldn't be able to control that style of a boat. So I did a huge amount of testing of the autopilot. So we have that currently in this boat. We have Dyneema cable steering, which is manual. We have dual hydraulic cylinders, one on each rudder. And then we have an autopilot that automatically controls the rudder. So I've been doing testing of high-speed steering systems. Excuse me. So to answer that question, I elected not to have a skeg-hung rudder. I want rudders that are extremely fast. I want a boat that can be tested for surfing the waves. And I want the ability to drop that rudder without having to remove a sked if I have to do some type of work on it. Great question. I know I'm going to get a lot of comments and a lot of beating over that, but bring it on. I love to be challenged. The next question is, and again, Katie Lange, stabilization. Another thing I've been exploring is stabilization, like the Seakeeper they say they have for the cats now, but I couldn't find an example. They weigh about 800 pounds. It might be a bad thing acted on a weighted keel. They did just come up with a cool system called the Seakeeper Ride, which is more for when you're sailing or motoring. Okay, the winds, I've been watching them for a long time. through their experience of sailing catamarans, the HH, now their aluminum vessel, which I think is a very cool looking, great vessel. They just installed a stabilizer. What I learned over the years, the Nordhavens, the diesel ducks, having the outriggers, having the vanes. I was part owner, and a very good friend of mine that's passed away had a trawler that had paravanes and outriggers, and that old boat stabilization was using the natural waves in the ocean. So, as an electrical engineer, anytime I add a component to a boat that is dependent on the boat's ability to be stable in seas and heavy waves, I try to utilize the least complicated and the least expensive type of stabilization. I mean, I have a friend that just rebuilt his stabilizers on his Nordhaven, a huge hydraulic system, amazing. I love it as an engineer. It's a marvel to be able to compensate for what's going on. But to me, this vessel does not have the room, nor is it a catamaran designed to have stabilizers, because a catamaran stabilization happens the way you use your sails, the way that you deploy your head sail or your storm sail. You use the wind and you use the forward motion of the vessel. You use the weight in the keels, the ballast tanks, and the automatic steering for your stabilization. It's a science that comes together that is just phenomenal. And I'm saying that because the research and design and development that I've come to understand over the years is that it's not about a single system. And it's about how those are integrated that makes that boat safe and stable. And that is not something that you're going to get off of a drawing board or something you're going to get just out of a boatyard. It's something you're going to get out of a combination of all of these experts in one room. By the time we come out, there's a winner. And the winner isn't always me. A lot of times lately it's been Terry. A lot of times it's Dwight. But I can guarantee you that when we come out of the room, the winner is the right answer. And that's what I'm an advocate of here, is that it's not about the boat. Again, it's about the team. Thank you for the question. So now, excuse me. Next question. This is an interesting one. This is by Kay Weiss. And thank you, Kay, for this question. And it's actually something that I've spoken with multiple times with Yana, and we talk about it, and then I kind of put it away. And the question, I'm going to read it, and it's going to make the hair stand up on a lot of the designers out there. But an interesting question to ask your marine architect, yourself and the team. How would a tabernacle mast configuration look like on an aluminium cat, despite it not being done yet, and cats normally having high masts? Far more cruising grounds and safe harbors, being able to access lakes, river canals, docks, otherwise not accessible. The ease of setting up an emergency mast and easier maintenance if the mast would go down. Designing the bulkhead for a salon, its window front and a roof such a way that the long tabernacle is welded into the boat structure. Excuse me. So for those of you that aren't aware, our steel motor sailor had a tabernacle mast, both for the main and for the catch, because it was a catch rig. What that means is you could pull some pins, you could use the halyards, and you could lower both the mizzen mast and the main mast down. And now you had a boat that could go under bridges. This boat toured the canals of France. It went around Europe. And then after it left the canals, then the mast is deployed again. And I said to Yana many months ago, I said, could you imagine if we had a tabernacle mast on the catamaran? You could lower it down and you could go places where you couldn't go, especially if you wanted to take your catamaran and even do the loop. or you wanted to do just the ICW. Our catamaran's not capable of doing that. So what I had to do is a compromise, and I think it would be quite unique, but a boat that is designed for the application that I'm doing is predominantly for the heavy weather offshore traveling, for the exploration traveling. So having a very strong, secure rig is inherent of safety. Having a rig that is properly and structurally integrated into the aluminum boat becomes a safety factor. So what I had found is our tabernacle collected a lot of salt water and a lot of debris, and that started to corrode from the inside out. I had to completely rebuild that tabernacle, and it was a second time. So the last thing I want to do is have anything that would impede the structural integrity of the mast. More importantly, the reason why I compromise is I'm putting a smaller rig on this boat than what it could handle. Once again, I'm going to refer back to the Beowulf, is that that theory is that a smaller rig will be utilized more than a larger rig. And what I mean by that is that a smaller rig on a boat, you're going to raise the mainsail faster and more often. You're going to pull out your head sail more often. You're going to put your storm sail up, especially if there's just the two of you single handling this vessel. The vessel we're on currently, it's over rigged, it's oversailed. So it's going to take the special weather and a special time for me to sail this boat to its full capacity because it's dangerous from my perspective. Having a full crew, having a bunch of guys or girls on board that know sailing, absolutely. Fly the hull, see what it can do. The H&Hs are great for that. You can really sail those beasts, but you better have people on board that know what they're doing, because you can also make one mistake and now your home is upside down. So again, thank you for the question, but a little bit smaller rig on a much more robust boat means that you're going to deploy that main sheet faster. You're going to be able to quickly refit when you need or drop it when you need. So again, sorry for all the questions, but to me, this is amazing information that you should know going forward, whether you own a boat, buying a boat, or looking at building a boat. So this is kind of a comment, and it's a comment that I get, and I used to get a lot in the oil rig business, and I got it a lot with the steel motor sailor, and I get it maybe 1 out of every 100 people, so I want to cover it. And this is by Venus, maybe Venus Rise. Thank you for the question or comment. I think it's weird how the boating community talks so much about being environmentally conscious and or recycling the hull when the boat is burning 100,000 gallons of fuel in a lifetime, using thousands of manufactured parts, and putting tons of waste in the water. Let's be real. Boating is not an eco-friendly activity. Everybody has a massive carbon footprint. Just own it. Well, I'm not disagreeing with you. I also think that I'll be a little bit of an engineer in this case. Is you need to do some research. When I say that, is that how many people are flying around the globe on airplanes today? How many cars are using diesel fuel, are using gasoline? How many factories to build the data centers that you're currently writing this comment on? Take a look at your cell phone. What's that carbon footprint? And I could go on and on. I was appalled when I was in the oil business and I was off the coast of Africa sitting on the oil rig and looking at 2 million barrels a month leaving. 2 million barrels a month. And that was a small field. And it wasn't because people were looking for a place to put the oil. I'm sorry, people. It was because people are consuming oil and they're consuming these fuels at a rate that cannot be sustained forever. So here's where I come into play. I think that people in the boating industry, I think that we are a rare breed. I think we're the ones that are testing the application opportunities. I think we're the ones out there that are trying to go off grid, see what battery is going to work, see if you can live without shore power for the next 7 months. Look at how you can buy chicken in a little village and pay 20 Thai baht to a lady that has raised that chicken, and now that's helping her son or daughter go to school. And you're bringing that chicken to the boat and you're cooking it on solar power. So I beg to differ with you. Yes, the boating industry might have a footprint as every other technology in the world, but it's our responsibility to look at opportunities and ways to test. So maybe our great grandchildren, or maybe your children, are going to be advantageous from something we tested, or they're going to live a better life by what we've done out here in the ocean. So, each one of us has to do our own to, I guess, make our mark in the world, leave this world better than we found it. And we can sit here and we can talk about what's good or what's bad. But my opinion is get off your butt, go do something about it. And I hope you are, because we stop and pick up trash when we can. We are looking at ways to better the boat life. And, hats off to companies like Max Cruise using hybrid and solar. Hats off to even the companies that are experimenting in electrical and hybrid, new technologies in boating. We are using aluminum. And then what we're not using is going back and being recycled. We're welding and we're giving people clean jobs. Okay, welding is not the cleanest on earth, but at the end of the day, you've got a vessel that can be recycled if you need to. And if there's a problem with them, you have the ability to fix that problem and maintain your asset value. Your boat didn't go down, and now your retirement just went down and you're waiting for 2 years for the insurance company to find a way that they're not going to pay you. So again, thank you for the comment. And again, my opinion, and we all have them. So the next question kind of goes in that same, I guess, in that same field. K again. Yes, aluminum boats can be recycled, even just by nature, onto a reef. But the point I made is that consciously avoid adding toxic materials, especially insulation. Keep the environment advantage of the aluminum boat and avoid adding toxins. Many boats, even Delos, add very toxic spray insulation, which reduces the aluminum environment factor. Joining the common maritime industry of having excuses and a limited concern for the environment and dangers of toxic materials in creation, production, storage, and transport. Use of application, non-existing. End solution. Some common spray insulation is even forbidden to be used in some countries because of the documented cancer, especially by beings doing the spraying application. Paint on aluminum is cost effective. Paint on aluminum creates cost as well as other issues in the environment. So let me answer that. And thank you again. The aluminum vessels that I have designed, I have built, and this Alu-Exp will not have any paint on it. We had to paint the oil rigs with a special paint by Carboline, and we would leave from the United States in Galveston with the rig. And as it sailed from Galveston on a heavy lift all the way to Africa, we had a full crew painting that rig, because by the time it arrived, the rig had to be repainted again. Our steel motor sailor constantly had to be painted. If you look at a channel, I'm not sure the name, I think it's Jupiter or something, and they've had to take their Mumby aluminum catamaran and constantly chase corrosion issues because water gets trapped between the body putty or the filler the aluminum and the paint. And so again, I want to look at the inspiration by the FPBs and by Beowulf. Those boats are not painted. Now, not only are you not painting and going through an exercise, but you're also using aluminum, the H111 or H116, where it is automatically the outside of that aluminum builds a barrier. And this boat being 10 years old, there's no paint in the bottom hulls. And it looks just like 5 years after it was built. It's not going to degrade other than getting some dark stains on it. So the boat that we have designed does not have any paint. It also allows you to inspect the chain plates, the welds, inspect the locations to make sure that you're not having cracks or you're not having issue with the boat. Yes, it takes a little bit better welder. It takes a different type of design because you're not covering the welds up with filler and then painting over the top of them. By the time this boat is finished, all the paint will have been ground off. We have 90% of the paint ground now off the back. We will continue to grind the rest of that in the next shipyard, but I don't want a painted boat. I want a boat that is aluminum and looks like it's aluminum because I spent a lot of money to make it out of aluminum. So thank you for that question. Now, again, this question is by Rick HZB. So thank you, Rick, for the question. And William, thanks for answering my question. That's in advance. What do you think of the Barefoot Doctor's insistence that their Portofino be built with a significant hull flare starting several feet back from the bow and above the waterline? One, to cause the front of the hull to pop out of the water quicker when the bow is buried. He built a 40-foot catamaran from the ground up many years ago and sailed for years, and he designed it this way. And two, the obvious, you get a lot more interior space. And then Charlie O added to that. I too am interested in the flare feature of the hull design, as well as a knuckle, which I believe helps keep water waves off the deck, as well as gives more interior space without affecting hull speed. But it's probably more difficult to shape. You know, man, I could go into this for days and months. And again, the first thing I'm going to cite is how do you intend to use your boat? And what is your experience? And where have you gone with your boat? And I say that because having owned trawlers, having built offshore rescue boats for the oil industry, super fast aluminum boats, a pair of 3208 diesels with hyperjet drives. Those boats I got to 52 knots, spin them on a dime. Those were catamarans. And the center of gravity was extremely low because we filled the two hulls full of fuel. The weight, the balance, and the center of gravity. When we upgraded our offshore jackup rig, a jackup rig is a rig to where it has a huge container. It has 4 huge beams that are on gears and cogs. And what happens is that rig has a deck where the people live and work, and it has a bottom to it. You take that rig to 60 foot of water, 80 foot of water. This was a 65-foot jackup. And now you fill that bottom hull full of water. And as you do, you sink that to the bottom of the ocean. At the same time, you jack the rig above the water by 30 feet. And now you have that rig sitting on the bottom of the water. The reason I'm stating that is the center of the gravity determines the safety of your vessel. If you have a catamaran, you have a different center line of gravity, whether it be imaginary center line or a real center line. If you're designing a full displacement hull, a semi-displacement hull, if you're racing on a race boat by Reggie Fountain, and you have a pair of 800 horse motors, when you jump a wave, you've got to pull that lever back instantly or you're going to blow both engines. So in poker runs, I'm doing the driving and I'm doing the throttles, and 3 people are telling me where I'm going. The reason I'm stating this is that the hull at the water line, and Terry and Anton are going to drive that to death. The waterline beam of each hull, or the waterline beam of a single hull vessel, is your single most important factor, and how that relates to your center of gravity, which is where your weight is distributed. Design that vessel, and now guess what? You put a 20-meter mast on top, and now you take a 9.5-meter long boom and you hook a huge piece of sail to it. And now you have completely changed that center line of gravity to a point that might become dangerous if you haven't compensated for that. So power cats have one center line of gravity. Different boats have different center lines of gravity, and even an aluminum boat has a different center line of gravity. So as I go through the design and the requirements, and Anton and Dwight go through the details, and then Terry and I go through what can possibly and properly be built, and then we go back to Anton about modification. The reality is that if you put ballast tanks and you can change the balance and the buoyancy and the center line, and then you look at your load, your payload is extremely important. If you're going to leave for 6-7 months and be out at the ocean, your parts, your tools, your workshop has to be functional. You can't have a water pump or a fuel pump die on you and go back home. So the payload becomes extremely important in the design. So I'm going to go back to, I think Barefoot Doctors have, along with Portofino, they built an amazing boat. I'll be very, very interested to see it sail. I'd be very interested to see how it handles fall weather. I'm sure they also are interested. So I can't comment on the significant flare hull because I haven't looked at the tank tests. I haven't looked at the engineering behind that flare. I would love to have them send me the drawings, and I would love to have a look at it, because what I've learned, as I've stated as an engineer and studying for the last 40 years, this industry, I go by experience, and I go by other vessels, and I go by as much data as possible. And then I want to use my own experience because I know where I want to sell this boat, and I know who I want to sell this boat to. I'm probably going to disqualify 80% of you people out there. I'm going to say, this is not the boat for you. And frankly, I'm going to want to sell you a Max Cruise Marine because you got a hybrid boat that right now, today, you can jump on one and go sailing, especially if you're older. I didn't build a boat because of my age. I was afraid that, damn, the boat may not be done and I may not be here to finish it. So again, I'm probably going to disqualify most of the buyers because I only want the buyers that are qualified for this application. So again, I would be very interested to see the requirement of why this flare was put there. And I would definitely love to have a conversation because I'm always learning. I'm never going to stop learning. So again, I'm not here to discredit anybody. I'm more here to give you facts based on what I know, and maybe get you thinking to go back and ask some of the questions. Again, as you can see, I've been inundated with questions. I'm going to start answering them as well online with text, because I want the podcast to be about moving forward on the boat design, but I did promise everybody to answer these questions. So let me hit this. It's more, and I covered it partially before. It's by Shay Ni Young, 4801. And Shaney Young, I assume that you, from your comments, are either a marine architect, naval architect, engineer. You definitely have someone, or sorry, you definitely have a background because of the questions or comments. So I covered that a little bit earlier. I'm going to take the question and read it to everyone. The first half of your video is good and covers good topics. And that, go back at the old, the other podcast, I cover topics about selecting a boat, what you should and should not have. And I covered a little bit here about don't go buying an aluminum boat if it's got a sail drive. I'm sorry. And give me a call and I'll send you a bunch of reasons behind it. But it says your bias to say aluminum is superior to other materials is very misleading. To honestly think that an aluminum boat won't get a hole in it or sink is terribly misleading. As someone that has designed and built aluminum boats, I'm very worried about so many YouTubers misleading the average Joe and thinking a material is going to make their boat experience safe. There is nowhere enough coverage on how aluminum boats get holes from the inside as well, unlike a plastic boat. Now, I'm going to continue. It doesn't perform well and become more unsafe as a sailing vessel. To make it lighter and form like a good catamaran, all the scantlings need to come down. The one that tends to come down first are the skins. So you'll always end up at a minimum skin thickness chasing the weight problem. Thin aluminum skins, well, they tend to end up with holes in them pretty easily. Also, you need to compare apples to apples. You can't compare a production-built lagoon to a custom aluminum catamaran. Compare it to a custom-built plastic boat, and the aluminum boat is way off scale regarding the ability to sink and get holes that will end up with weather ingress. I have been through this loop of discussions more than once with clients. As someone that has designed both with no bias either way, I do not know what ends up, or I do know what ends up the better sailing boat. So clearly, this man, I think is a man, is an advocate of the fiberglass boats. And I'm not here to say that I'm not an advocate of a fiberglass boat. I'm here to tell you that 45 years in the oil rig industry and being an engineer and living on boats and having over 17 different boats and living on the boats and experiencing what I've experienced, I can tell you that I counted 27 boats that came into Hurricane Cove in Miami in a month of things that they hit, boats that sunk, boats that hit sandbars. And of that, I counted 9 aluminum and steel boats that came in and had to have holes repaired that were not sunk. Yes, any boat can sink. The Titanic sunk. But I have to call you out here is to say that I never said that an aluminum boat isn't going to sink. What I've said is that a properly designed boat with watertight bulkheads and proper watertight compartments is much safer and much less likely to sink than a boat that doesn't have watertight bulkheads, or it was designed with watertight bulkheads and I get in the engine room and 7 holes were drilled through it because somebody installed an air conditioning system. I was part owner of a Lagoon 46. They had the air conditioners installed in 4 cabins because the boat went into charter. They drilled the holes through the bulkheads. They weren't watertight, but all the bulkheads rotted from the water, and now the boat's sitting on the hard. So my point is, every boat is designed for an application. I'm not here to say that fiberglass is less superior. What I'm here to tell you is that we never used fiberglass in the oil rig business. We never used fiberglass in the emergency rescue boats. And having been an early responder and a paramedic in 14 hurricanes in the U.S., Katrina had maybe 700 boats on shore. Cruise ships, steel boats, work boats, aluminum boats, fiberglass boats. And when I was doing search and rescue for 10 days with the National Guard, the aluminum boats and the steel boats were still on shore. The fiberglasses were in pieces scattered all over the place. So again, my point is that I'm here selling Max Cruise Marine. It's got an excellent boat. It has a perfect place. It has watertight bulkheads designed into the design of the boat. The boat that I've designed and the boat that we're building is specifically designed with 6 watertight compartments per hull, plus tanks that have been designed to give you a second skin. So in the event you do have a pinhole, you have a problem, you're going to fill a tank up with seawater as opposed to filling your lower hull. Again, weight, balance, center line of gravity, hull performance, hull design. And yes, we have designed this boat in the event of a failure because there will be a failure. But again, I'm not here to sell apples and oranges. I'm here not to design like catamarans, and I'm not here to design something that's going to compete with 90% of the globe. I'm here that has designed with a team a boat that is able to handle as much shit as you're going to throw at it. And in this case, we have already been in storms on this boat. We've been in 70 knot gusts. We've gotten hit by another boat. We've gotten hit by large pieces of debris. And at the same time, I saw two lagoons, a 50-foot and a 46-foot, go down on each side of us. So again, I'm talking from experience, and I'm looking at the best and safest boat that I think can be designed and built. And I'm sure that other people that are designing and going into aluminum, the advantage there is that we can determine the structural integrity, and we can determine where we want to put rooms without sacrificing the strength. And what I mean by that is that I've got 76 individual bulkheads and ribs on each side. So if I do hit something with the side of this hull, or a jet ski hits me, it's not going to go through the hull. It's going to dent it. It might make a hole. But anyway, I do thank you for the comment. Definitely would love to get on a phone call with you. I think you've got a ton of experience, and I would definitely love to learn from that experience. But again, I get a little bit personal because without someone knowing what we've designed, and without seeing it, and without actually understanding the thousands and thousands of hours that went into the design, you're right. It's not correct to, I guess, compete or compare apples and oranges. So again, anyway, thank you. And I threw a picture. I took this picture today, and it's to answer that comment. And we had 30 knot. Let's just say we had from 25 to 35 knot winds. We are anchored on the windy side of the island because if you notice up here, I've got the front porthole open. We've got the windows open, no air conditioning on, and it's beautiful and cool inside the boat. But I took the picture and I took a video with the dinghy because granted, we're at anchor and we have the anchor going out in front of us. We have the bridle. But I wanted to call out here, and the reason why I took the photo is that you're going to see a wave right here, and then you're going to see it go down, and another one right here. You're going to see another one go down. These increase and decrease based on the speed and based on the water hitting us. When we had our sabot at anchor, we constantly kept dragging anchor, and I would have 70 meters of chain out, a 50-foot rock knot. And the boat was so high, so wide, the hulls were so wide that when the winds would hit us, it would pull so hard on the anchor and the chain that we had 4 or 5 times dragging anchor. The winds and the waves hitting this boat, even when we were bringing the boat from Durban to Tanzania, the waves hit the bottom, and you'll notice that there is you'll notice that this is at an arc, and it's a radius, I should say. So this radius is made for the waves to hit the front of this boat and then glide over the top. The hulls are designed very narrow, so they slice through the wave rather than bouncing on top of the wave. So on a hull comparison, this is a very narrow hull. It's a special purpose design boat. It's made to slice through the waves, surf over the top of them, and then let the wave pass to the back of the boat. Let the sail and the power push you through that water. If I go back to the question that was asked about if I took the wetted water line, which is the beam at water line in this boat, is very narrow. It's only 1.1 meter, which makes it difficult to carry any type of payload. The reason for that is if I put anything on this boat, which we have it heavily weighted, and you notice that every time I go back, I keep seeing more and more of the bottom paint. When we first took the boat out for testing, the bottom paint, you could not find it. So right now we have 410 liters of water on each side, 420 liters of fuel on each side, and I don't even want to guess how many tons of gear is still on the boat. By removing the weight from the front sail lockers and removing the weight from the aft deck and leaving the weight in the center of the boat where are the tools and equipment, we've stopped hobby horsing. And what I mean by that is that when we would be at anchor, the boat would start to rock like on a rocking horse, because the weight that was in the front of the boat and the weight that was in the back of the boat, based on the center line of gravity, would cause this boat to seesaw and start going back and forth. That has been completely eliminated now by bringing the boat higher up in the water, more in the design of the actual hull. If we maintain the same exterior of the hull, but we took the interior of the hull a certain portion above the wetted water line, and we brought that further in, we would increase our space on the inside of the boat for cabinets, beds, storage, etc. It also would change the dynamics of how this boat will sail through the water, its speed. So again, this special purpose boat was designed for high speed. Get away from the pirates, get away from the military people that might be stopping you for free fuel. Get to Somalia as fast as possible. Huge rig, huge sailing capacity, but you better have a full crew of very experienced people. Brandon was the captain of this boat. He knew how to sail this boat. The people that went on the voyages were experts. So the point I'm trying to make is this was a special purpose design boat. What we have designed has been inspired by this boat. It's why we've partnered with Anton Dutoy, who designed this boat. And this boat is now, since being splashed in 2014, a very old boat in the water, but extremely well built and still a workhorse. So I use this as an example. And again, it's the work that we have used and the work and the experience we've applied into this new product line. So let me go into something, and I'm not going to spend much more time. The question constantly comes up, and this is by Todd Harshbarger 8616. You maybe will address this in your podcast, as I haven't finished watching it yet. But if your boat was built in 2009, how realistic is the corrosion or metal fatigue prediction that 50 years, the aluminum may begin to fail? So it's interesting. And, you know, when we went to Africa to check out this boat, we took all of our baggage. We had been in enough storms. We almost got hit by a 50-foot catamaran. There were enough times that we said, you know what? Either we're going to build or we're going to buy something. This is half the boat of our Saba. What I mean by that is that the Saba is amazing. If you're looking for an amazing boat, definitely hit us up. That Saba is available. It's for sale, and it's amazing. But we wanted to go to aluminum because of the type of boating we do. And we flew there with all of our baggage and said, as long as the boat didn't have corrosion, as long as the boat had one running engine, and it had a decent set of sails, we were going to make an offer. And the owner, Craig, I sat down and had a conversation with him. He is the owner of Sparcraft Masts. He designs and builds and makes the mast for this boat, Balance, Lagoon, many, many others. And so, bottom line is, we stepped on the boat and we fell in love with it. And we spent, thank you, Craig and the broker and everyone, we spent, I think, almost a week on the boat. We stayed on the boat and we inspected every nook and cranny. I did not have a surveyor because if I was going to make an investment in this boat, to not only buy it, but to refit it and someday build one, I wanted to make sure that I knew what I was getting into. And I wanted to make sure Yana was along with the ride. So we made an offer. The boat, phenomenal. It had been sitting for a long time. We did a lot of work on it so we could leave Durban. It took us a month and a half. Electrical, battery, solar, instrumentation, pumps. We had to get it safe. And then it went to Tanzania, and we went to Tanzania and spent another month getting it ready. And because of work and other obligations, we couldn't bring the boat across. Captain Nutt and his team brought the boat in 22 days from Tanzania to Thailand. They waterlocked an engine because the hull was a little bit too low to the water line and water got in the exhaust. They lost one of the side stays because the pin wore out and that shot across and into the ocean in the middle of the night. So they came all the way from the Seychelles, one engine, one alternator because no generator, and a halyard in place of the stay. And then they blew out the furling system for the head sail. So they had to leave the head sail all the way along and then try to hand crank it, which takes almost 2 hours. So let's be realistic. Anything in 50 years, we're renovating 100-year-old hotels. No pile caps. We have to inject the soil to increase the soil stability. We have to dig underneath the subsurface and take a look at what type of floating pillars there are. We have to change the beams out to make the hotel safe. We go through excruciating pain to make that 100-year hotel safe and still keep it looking like it's 100 years old because it's historic. A 50-year-old boat, who knows what it's going to look like in 50 years. I do know that I inspected 5 days on a boat called Firebird. Look it up. It was built in 1968 in Sturgeon Bay, Wisconsin. At that time, it was built for the owner of Timken Bearings. At that time, it was the largest aluminum monohull built in the world. It's here in Phuket. I surveyed the boat. I lived in the boat for 4 days. I looked at possibly turning the boat into an expedition charter boat. And that boat was not built with marine aluminum. At the time, marine aluminum did not exist. So here you have a boat from 1968, still floating, circumnavigated twice, no hull, or no corrosion in the hull, no paint in the hull. So that was a boat that was properly maintained. I'm sure it had a few pits here and there along the way from the outside. This boat, after we hauled it out, 0 pits because the bottom paint was phenomenal. We did bring it down to the 2-part epoxy. So my point is that this boat, I was not able to find any corrosion, but it was well cared for. It's every single area is accessible in the hulls, and it has the watertight bulkhead compartments that if there is a problem, it's going to stay in that area. So I always look at it, whether it's an automobile, I've restored old trucks. I grew up with my father restoring Model A's. We had to take every nut and bolt and refinish it and make it like new. Restored a couple of Corvettes, a couple of 1956 truck. Essentially, anything that is built by man needs to be maintained. It needs to have a PM, a preventive maintenance program, and it needs to have areas that you can access and make sure that you're safe. So again, thanks for the question. I'm covering a lot about aluminum. Aluminum and the type you use. We are using the marine grade H116 throughout the whole boat. We're not using H111. A lot of aluminum builders today are using H116 and H111 combination, or H11 all by itself. Because of the impact resistance, the structural integrity, the tensile strength, and the ribs and the beams that we've designed, the scantlings, is that we're using the H116 for the boat build. This boat has H116 from the hulls down and H111 from the hulls up. And the H111 was built as a separate entity, and then they were joined. I've elected not to do that because there is no paint. I want the same welder and the same expert person welding the hull as he's welding the coach roof, as he's welding the mullions. All right. I'm going to wrap it up. I'm sorry for the long-winded answers to the questions, but that's what we do here. We are giving you engineering fact, experience, and believe me, before I answer these questions, not only did I use my own opinion, I asked the industry experts that I'm partners with. I asked their opinions. I looked at what's out there in the internet, and I've got to caution you. And when I say that is that right now, take a look at these sites. We'll put a link below. Is that you have ALUEXP.com, SITyachts.com, MaxCruiseMarine.com, MultiHullAsia.com, DetroitYachtDesign.com. The experience that sits within these companies is unheard of in the industry. We didn't just pay each other to go make a boat. We have partnered to make a company that is making this vessel. And it's also utilizing our expertise within this group that is going to make the Max Cruise Marine line better. And Max Cruise line makes our boats better. So combination, we're using the synergies because we are supplying two different types of products. We're supplying a product for one type of buyer, and we're supplying a product for another type of buyer. We're not competing. We're using our synergies, and we're giving better products all the way around. So I thank you for being here. Shout out to everyone within this group. Shout out to Charlie of Multi-Hull Asia and KK. Shout out to Max Cruise Marine, Terry, Tom, and the whole team and crew. Phenomenal. Shout out to Anton and Dwight for putting up with my engineering and my countless documents and asking a million questions. Shout out to SIT Yachts. Pick up the phone, give a call to JJ, get that information. She has anything you can imagine to send you on the Max product line. And then thank you all for supporting the Alu-Exp. Send this to somebody, anybody. Let's get to at least 1,000 subscribers. We are going to continue with the Dawn Hunter podcast because we keep breaking shit and then we have to fix it. And that's how we learn. So come back after the live because we're going to cover hybrid, serial hybrid. We're going to cover lithium batteries. We're going to cover how hybrid has emerged. And we're going to cover the hybrid system in both the Max 55 SC and also the Max 48. These are boats that are operational, tested. They've crossed oceans. And this is phenomenal. And I say it's phenomenal because my first comment as electrical engineer when I first met Terry is, I don't even want to talk about hybrid. Sorry. I want engines that are no computer, no ECU, simple, and I'll throw my DC alternators on it. Oh, sorry, AC alternators that produce DC. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm the first guy to tell you when I am probably wrong. I'll be the first guy to tell you that if I haven't studied something, I've got to study it before throwing my opinion across the table, because I have become a proponent of the parallel hybrid system. And the reason for that is you still can run on a diesel. You still can cut the belt off with a knife if you have to. You still have a basic system that I require for living off grid, but you have an advantage of some boost mode and some other things. So anyway, thank you, everybody. Make sure that you check in next Sunday. I think it's 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the live, where we will be answering questions. Send those questions to us this week. And again, thank you for my coughs, my pauses. Even thank you for going back and restarting. Because this is a podcast and I'm learning from Bobby and James and a lot of other people, I'm not going to go through and edit anything. It's more important I get this information to you. And again, subscribe to this channel, subscribe to the YouTube channel, Dawn Hunters. Check out any one of these companies. Definitely tell them that you heard about their companies here, and see you next week.